This is Brian O'Haron speaking, an advocate since 2002 for growing the Grand List. If you want to, you can call me the Community Grand List Growth Advocate. At the end of this program, I will make some comments, so stay tuned.
7:02, and I call the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of March 27th to order.
For both of the hearings, we will first have a presentation from the applicant to explain their project. During this part of the hearing, we ask that the general public remain quiet. The Commission may ask questions during or after this presentation. Second, we will open the hearing to the public. Everyone who wishes to speak may do so. Please state your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your comments in the initial round to under 3 minutes. After this first turn, you may speak longer. Please remain focused on the application and how it does or does not meet the requirements set forth in our regulations. Copies of our special permit criteria have been placed on the table over there, and if they need more copies, let me know. In the interest of time, if another person has covered a topic, you do not need to repeat it. You could just indicate that you agree with a particular topic or statement. This hearing may or may not conclude tonight, depending on how things go. We also ask that any questions or comments to the applicant that you may have be directed to the chairman and not directly to the applicant. Also, that only one person shall speak at any one time, and there shall not be any outbursts, clapping, or jeering allowed. This helps keep the recording of the hearing clear in case we need it. It's very hard to follow random back and forth conversations. Any written correspondence, pictures, or other materials used in your presentation which are shown to the Commission must be left with the Secretary to become part of the record. Please understand we have to make the Commission, I don't vote. Please understand we have to make our decision based on the record of this hearing and the requirements found in the regulations. We cannot take into consideration factors not covered in the regulations or any item that may be discriminatory or otherwise improper. Additionally, we cannot look at the tax or other fiscal impacts of the town in deciding an application. Depending on need, again, this hearing may or may not be continued beyond tonight. Commission deliberation and voting will not happen until this hearing is closed, and it may take some time depending on how much review is needed. We will welcome your input once we open the hearing for public comments. Please be patient. This process is meant to be fair to all parties involved, including the applicant, the Commission, and the public. Thank you for participating and caring for our community.
Okay. Now I need a motion to open the public hearing on PZ 1704 special permit 372, 376 Main Street and 30 Elm Street, MAC 110, Block 001, Lots 2, 2A, 18 and 18A. Applicant, Community Health and Wellness Center of Greater Torrington, Inc. Owner, Winsted Super Saver Property, LLC. Proposed relocation and expansion.
I'd like to make a motion that we open the public hearing for PZC 17-04.
Second. All those in favor? Unanimous? Well, it looks to me to be 7-4.
Notice. Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission notification of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 27th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the 3 Francis 6 room. Second floor, Town Hall, 338 Main Street, Winsted, for the following application. PZC 1703, applicant Community Health and Wellness Center of Greater Torrington, Incorporated, owner, Winsted Super Saver Property, LLC, 372, 376 Main Street, 30 Elm Street, map 110, block 001, lot 2, 2A, 18, and 18A. Proposed relocation and expansion. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and written communications will be received. Copies of the filed application are on file for public inspection in the Planning and Community Development Office. Dated Connecticut this 15th day of March 2017. Craig Sandin, and it was in the 16th and 22nd of March. And we do have this, the other receipts.
You got the receipt? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Would you introduce yourself for the record, please?
That's when it was put in. It says March 27th. Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure you were done with your...
You got receipt.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself and whatever.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. I am Attorney Joe Williams. I'm a partner in the Hartford law firm Shipman and Goodwin. And with me this evening are Joanne Bourdois, the CEO of the Community Health and Wellness Center, along with, back here in the first row, Ron Bassini, our project manager, Pat Ryan, and our architect, Craig Chassie, who you'll hear from Craig in a moment after Joanne. And as mentioned, we are seeking a special permit to operate a medical clinic at 372 and 376 Main Street in Winsted. I believe all the required notices have been provided, the receipts, and the town staff have reviewed and commented on the application, and our team has met with the Architectural Review Committee. So what I'd like to do is first introduce you to the applicant and what they do and what they're planning to do at the subject property if this application is approved. And I thought it'd be best if you hear that from Joanne.
Thank you. So Community Health and Wellness Center is what we call a federally qualified health center. That means that we have been given that designation. Thank you, Steve. To be established in communities where there is a need to serve the underserved or vulnerable populations. We established ourselves as a 501c3 back in 2004. In 1998, we actually started as a two-room department of Charlotte Hungerford Hospital because the need was identified in Torrington. Unfortunately, 3.5 years after the hospital opened that service, because of financial constraints, we had to close that service. But leaders in the community felt strong enough that they helped us to get funding, and we proceeded to go and become designated as an FQHC. In 2012, we were asked to expand our services to Winsted, and we started our services in the 115 Spencer Street location where we are currently located. Our services include medical services, dental, and behavioral health. We did have to stop providing dental services here in Winsted last year due to our space constraints for the location that we are currently in. We are proposing to relocate so that we can expand our services and increase our capacity. We know that the demand is there for this particular community. We are only currently penetrating about 24% of the low-income population. We only have the ability to provide medical services with one provider, and the services that we are in today are extremely cramped and tight, not only for patients, most importantly, but for the staff as well. So this new location would allow us to expand our capacity, increase our primary care rooms, increase our behavioral health services, which is much needed in this community as well, and it would allow us to reestablish dental services as well.
Great. Thank you. The property that's the subject of the application, as I mentioned, it's 372 and 376 Main Street, and as mentioned in our application, thank you. The property also includes a parcel known as 30 Elm Street, which is the surface parking behind the building, and that parking area is known as 30 Elm Street by virtue of a lot line revision plan that was filed by the current property owner recently. And in that revision, the small building to the side, if you will, that's now known as 26 Elm Street, became a separate parcel. So the parcel that's the subject of the application is the building at 372 and 376 Main, and the surface parking in the rear, that's 30 Elm Street. As I'm sure everyone knows, the site currently houses the Winsted Super Saver business, which has been operated in town by Mr. Dwan for some 36 years, I believe. And as everybody probably knows, that's him right behind me in the first row. I believe he's willing to answer questions or speak to the commission if you'd like. But as Mr. Dwan has announced, he's decided to retire and to sell the property and to close his business. And of course, we understand that some are sad to see that store close. That's understandable. He's run a fine business for a long time. But he has decided to retire. He certainly has the right to retire. And that's what he's decided to do. So you're not being asked here tonight to choose between a grocery store, or a health clinic. Rather, your vote on this application will decide whether the building that's already present will become a dark and empty building, or will it become filled up with a beautiful, new, thriving, and busy health center. So whether folks are sad to see the Super Saver close is a separate question legally from whether, as I think Steve put it at the outset, whether this application complies with your zoning regulations. And it is only the latter question that's before you tonight. Turning to our proposal, we are seeking a special permit for what under your regulations would be defined as a medical office large format, which is permitted by special permit in the town center zone in which the property is located. Your zoning regulations, as was mentioned, list several factors for your decision on a special permit. That's in section 3J3. And the first one of those considerations is whether this is a suitable location for the proposed use of a health and wellness center. Joanne explained to you, and you have in writing from us as well, a description of the important services that the health and wellness center provides to a segment of the community that has a substantial need for those services. 372 Main Street is an excellent location for the good work that the Community Health and Wellness Center does. As Joanne mentioned, it will help them better penetrate the market for their services, which has a great need for it. It also is a location that provides superior accessibility in general, but particularly compared to the existing site that they're located in. Further, renovating about 7,000 square feet at the subject property will allow a much-needed expansion of the center's services and a reduction in their wait times. As we mentioned in our application, this move to Main Street will allow the center to increase its primary care rooms from 2 to 6 and its dental operatories from 1 to 4, so a tripling and a quadrupling, if you will, of the service capacity of the center in those services. All of this makes the site an excellent location for the proposed use, and allowing the center to relocate to Main Street and to renovate it and expand its service capacity will provide a major community benefit. As you heard from, as you can see in our application, having a federal grant to renovate about 7,000 square feet allows the center to reserve about 2,300 square feet for future expansion, or potentially to partner with another user as the needs of the community may warrant. And that's something that the center looks at repeatedly every year. What are the needs of the community? And that space would be available for whatever it is that would make sense. And that's noted on the plans, future expansion area, in an area that's fronting onto Main Street. The next factor for a special permit under your regulations is whether the proposed improvements are attractive and suitable on the site and in the neighborhood. Note that we are not looking to change the site outside of the building, not changing the exterior or the grounds of the site. We will simply reseal and stripe the parking area. For the building, most of the work is interior renovation. We're not expanding the building in any way. We're not asking to change the footprint of the building in any way. Rather, we'd like to make fairly minor improvements to the front and the rear facades of the building. And I thought it would be better for you to hear more about that from our architect who designed the plan that you have in front of you, Greg Chassie. Sorry.
Good evening, I'm Craig Chassie from Architectural Studio 3C in Harlington. I'm a registered architect. I've been practicing architecture for 30 years. I've been working with Community Health to develop a plan for their
Excuse me one second. Can the commission see that okay, or would you like it a little straight? Maybe if it's just parallel to the wall a little more. So there you go. Everybody can
bring
see
it this way.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you see it? Doesn't make sense? Okay. All right. The new facility consists of a bunch of various uses. Our main central core here would be our waiting area, reception, check-in, check-out, things like that. As we go through, there's a primary care section over here, which contains 6 exam rooms, a charting area, office for the physicians, As we come around the plan, there's 4 dental operatories located over here with a sterilization and a dirty room for utensils that they use. There's also a charting area and an office for the dentist. In the center core, we have our mental health area, which is all behavioral health services. There's 2 consult rooms and 2 group rooms that consists of. And in this lower corner here, there's the lab that we do blood drawing. That has its own toilet room and a storage room for the different materials that they receive. We're looking to do minimal improvements on the south facade. We're going to remove the existing sign that's there, replace that sign with an aluminum frame fabric covered awning. That awning would protrude about 3 feet from the front of the building, and we've talked to the state of Connecticut DOT to confirm that that would be acceptable to them because they own the property which would overhang, and they have given us approval. We're also planning on removing the existing window wraps that cover the existing windows on that south facade and replacing them with appropriate but similar coverings that would represent the services provided within the building. The signage that's shown on the current canopy or the new canopy that I'm showing here is subject to change. It's not part of this approval process. They're going to design that and come back with an actual logo that they want to get for approval later. On the existing lighting that's lighting the sign right now will remain and light the new canopy. So there's no change in that. There's no change in any of the other materials on the front of the building other than replacing of the front entrance door to a new door system that is suitable for the use. On the north facade, basically what we're looking to do is remove a couple doors, one at the loading dock, one that's currently going into a storage room, replace the existing entrance door that's back there with a new door that's suitable, remove the existing canopy and replace it with a new canopy that's got some type of signage potentially on it. That's up for grabs at this point. Again, signage is going to be a different application. And then we're going to just repaint the back facade. As part of the architectural review board process, they suggested potentially adding in some plantings along that north facade, and that's something that will be addressed during the final design when we come in with our final plans. I guess pretty much that's all there is to go over as far as architecture on the building. There's not a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I believe we've addressed the remainder of your special permit criteria in the letter you got from me. Everybody should have one that sort of looks like that, dated March 9, 2017, filed with our application, and in all the other materials we've submitted to you. We're happy to answer any questions about the rest of them. But I believe that we have demonstrated in everything that we have submitted to you and explained to you this evening that our application satisfies all of your applicable regulations and should be granted. And we respectfully request your approval. And not to rush you, and you haven't heard from other folks yet, but if the commission is comfortable, we would really appreciate your action tonight if you're able to and if you're comfortable, just because of time constraints we have in our contract to purchase the property. Thank you.
Either way.
Either way, okay, so we'll have a site plan, you have the drawing of your parking layout? So that will come out at what time will that come to us? You're talking about planting?
I believe we didn't need to submit a site plan because we're not changing anything in the rear.
Yeah, that's correct. Everything in the parking lot stays as is. No changes to the site.
What about the handicap parking in the bathrooms on the drawing, you don't have drop-down bars on the toilet. Well, and not all the toilets don't have drop-down bars.
This space is adequate, and there will be drop-down bars when the final plans are submitted.
What are your hours of operation going to be?
They're mostly daytime hours, roughly 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, occasionally, I believe, Joanne, come up if you would
Occasionally
like.
6 o'clock is probably the latest.
Right, occasionally they may stay open until 6 p.m., but we expect mostly daytime business hours on weekdays.
No weekends.
Right. On weekdays, no weekends.
Do you anticipate any ambulance delivery or anything like that?
I don't think so.
The only time that really happens is if the patient were to come in and have an acute episode. Our process is to call 911 and get them to the hospital. So it does happen on occasion where we would need to do that, but because this is an outpatient service and patients are ambulatory, it happens rarely. And we can't guarantee that it will never happen.
Does anyone from the public care to address the applicants? Or us, too? Charlene had her hand up before you.
Hi. Hello? Yeah? Oh, yeah, there we go. Hi, I'm Charlene Lavoie, 14 John Street. Well, the good news is that Community Health and Wellness is already in Winsted providing services. So this isn't an issue of obtaining these services, these potentially necessary services for the residents of Winsted. They're here, and they've been operating at the Winsted Health Center for several years. They applied for a federal grant, which is taxpayer money, to expand their services at the Winsted Health Center. I've reviewed their application, and that's what it indicates. I know that's not an issue before this commission, but I think we should all be aware of that. The public should be aware that that money was granted to them based on their representation that they would expand their services at the Winsted Health Center. Why the Winsted Health Center? And why is this important? Because both the Plan of Conservation and Development and our zoning regs contemplate having a focus for health services in Winsted. Exactly on page 8-4 of the Plan of Conservation and Development, which the applicant's lawyer cites in his letter, but doesn't fully quote, it says, it's in the chapter 8 talking about, support for non-municipal, for non-commercial services. What's the title of it? Infrastructure. And the support of non-tax-paying, in other words, community services. And it says, the many non-municipal facilities provide invaluable benefit to residents. The town should encourage their continued presence and operation in the community. The town should continue to support the provision of health services at the Winsted Health Center. Why is that in the Plan of Conservation and Development? It's in there because upon the loss of our 100-year-old hospital in the late 1990s, the community got together and said, look, this is a community that needs hospital-level services. And it developed the Winsted Health Center with its partners, Charlotte Hungerford Hospital, St. Francis Hospital and Medical Center, and now the VA, and now the Community Health and Wellness, and the Susan B. Perry Senior Services up there to provide hospital-level services. What do I mean by that? We have a 12-hour-a-day emergency room up there with lifestyle capability. Why does this matter to this application? Because if healthcare starts getting frittered and dispersed throughout this community, and we lose the Spencer Street facility, that will be the end of emergency care and lifestyle services in this area. Don't doubt it for a moment that that's what will happen. And I've heard rumors that the applicant is trying to have the VA move out of the facility at the Winsted Health Center to the downtown facility. If that happens, that's the end of the Winsted Health Center. And again, that's not an issue to this commission, but it's certainly an issue under the POCD of what kind of community we want, and we want to be able to provide hospital-level health care services to the community. Okay, besides that, so I think the POCD very specifically addresses this issue and should be considered by this commission in its review under for a special permit. Second, the town center, the new planning and zoning regulations adopted last year is very clear, finally, about what we want this town to look like. And it very specifically sets forth that we want a town center business district. And while medical facilities are permitted in the district, it is clear from reading the regs and the POCD together that the intention is to have a central commercial business district. Look at what happened in 1986 when the Faith Bible Church got a hold of, 50 yards, maybe it's not that much, 50 yards on Main Street between the Gilson Theater and Monaco's Restaurant, or what's now the IGA and the Gilson Theater. It took a big portion of the very center commercial part of Winsted and made it nonprofit and made it non-commercial. This is not good for commercial viability in a small downtown area. So now the applicant is looking to expand that frontage. It's right next door to the church. Expand that frontage further along Main Street to between Monaco's and the Gilson and make all of that not-profit, non-commercial. It, I think, is completely contrary to what both the POCD and the planning and zoning regs set out.
Okay. Run up on your tongue.
Come back. You can come back.
I can come back?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank goodness.
Part two.
Fran?
Good evening, Chairman Sandin, Commissioners. My name Francis Delaney, 607 West Wakefield Boulevard, Winsted, and I'm here on behalf of Friends of Main Street this evening. We consider John Dwan to be one of the great assets for our community. He has worked diligently for the people and the community, and he's been a huge asset to the downtown, as has been his business. It is an undeniable fact that Winsted and Winchester will lose a great asset in that downtown area should there not be a retail business and specifically a grocery in the downtown area. Friends of Main Street is not going to advise how we believe you should act on the request for the special consideration. However, I was asked by the Board of Directors to at least express our concerns about the construction of the downtown area. And specifically, I wanted to reference a report in April 2013. Smart Growth America, a national consulting firm, visited Winchester to help the town begin to focus on Winsted's economic development and downtown revitalization needs. I'll give you a copy. You should have it on file, but I was reluctant to bring it out in front of you because I have a copy of a copy of a copy, and it's not in great condition, but I can make sure you get a clean copy should you need it. In any event,
We will need one for the record.
yeah, I will leave one
Somehow,
here.
yeah, if we don't already have one.
Yep. Our nation's demographics, their final report, asked us to consider national trends. Our national demographics are changing in a way that are profoundly affecting the housing market. The two biggest demographic groups in the nation, retiring baby boomers and millennials, 18 to 30-year-olds, are both expressing a strong preference for a more walkable urban village lifestyle. Indeed, a significant percentage of millennials are choosing to live without cars altogether. And in talking about our downtown, again, I want to stay under 3 minutes, so I'm leaving out some of their verbiage here. But although most storefronts are successfully leased, they're referring to our downtown. Downtown does not contain the variety of business establishments required to be a highly successful business district. Now, when Friends of Main Street has brought in Connecticut Main Street representatives or national Main Street representatives, one of the things that they have consistently marveled at was the presence of a grocery store downtown. And they talk about how that is a key presence in building a village-type environment where people can, in fact, have a walkable happenstance rather than being forced to drive everywhere. So they considered that this market that we have downtown to be a almost irreplaceable asset to the community. And they conclude by saying that the downtown can play an important role in the social and economic life of Northwest Connecticut if its status as a unique destination and a community with character can be reinforced. So, will losing this retail business and replacing it with a non-retail activity with a different clientele be of positive benefit to the downtown is an open question. But one thing is fairly certain, that the change in usage once made will most likely and functionally be irrevocable. We don't begrudge John in the slightest bit and have the highest regard for him and his respect to do whatever is in his best interest. It is up to the Commission, however, to determine what is consistent with the plan of conservation and development and the intent of your planning and zoning use changes, and ultimately set about making your decision in the best interest of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Identify yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Jean Nadel. I'm from 74 Albany Street, Torrington, Connecticut. I'm a dental hygienist at the Community Health and Wellness Center in Torrington. I started there in 2010, and I was the hygienist at our Winsted location from 2014 to 2016. I've seen many changes in our organization, but one thing remains the same. Our management and leadership are committed to community health. These have been trying times for community health centers, but our staff is devoted to access to care. I know there is a concern about the grocery store leaving. My neighborhood grocery store left many years ago, and I too was sad. But I ask you to envision the possibilities of our organization being closer for you than our current location on Spencer Street. We believe this location will provide accessibility and convenience. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else, please? Come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Philip Allen at 80 Chestnut Street. I'm here speaking entirely on in my personal capacity, and my views don't represent necessarily any of those of any organization I work with. I am largely in concurrence with some of the concerns that Fran Delaney has shared, that once a step is made in the direction of removing this property from the retail commercial environment of Main Street. It will be a blow for which that will be very, very difficult to recover. As much as I think that the application meets certain requirements of the POCD and the zoning regs, I think that viewed from a perspective of the overall sustainability and function of Main Street as the commercial center of our town, makes me feel like this will be the wrong choice for the town of Winchester. It may be a very good deal for John, and I respect him enormously. I'm a patient of Community Health and Wellness since approximately 2009, and I have great respect for their mission and the way they fulfill it. But I do very strongly feel that approving this application will be the wrong choice for the town of Winchester. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address?
Lindsay, 5070 East Wakefield. A number of my responses have already been published in the Republican American, but I concur with Philip that this would be a disastrous move for Winsted to put a non-commercial business on Main Street. I also wonder what would happen had last Friday the American Health Care Act had been passed. Then many of the services this community health would offer would no longer be available. That's still a possibility and needs to be part of our consciousness, so that we need to be aware that health care is something that is still up in the air. And the funding for it, which usually comes from your pockets and mine, is something that we have to be careful of. The IGA has been a godsend to people who don't have a car, who walk. Some probably 800 people a day go into that store. That's a pretty viable business. John Dwan has certainly been a contribution to our community. And also the taxes are not nothing. They're considerable tax for that piece of property, and that's part of the revenue. We've been growing our revenue and tax base. It's up 2.5%. If we start going backwards by having more and more non-taxable things, we're going to be in trouble. But I think it would be a wrong decision to allow this to move forward.
Just for the record, we can't really look at tax revenue in our decision.
I know.
Which is, so everybody knows.
Mario Longabuco. I live at 44 Twining Farm Lane in Torrington. As a matter of full disclosure, I work for Goodfellow Real Estate out of Danbury, and I help broker this deal with these people. I just want to come at it from a different angle about this whole what belongs downtown and what doesn't belong downtown. I live in Torrington, have my whole life. We're going through the same thing that you guys are. Downtown commercial real estate is virtually impossible to fill. Virtually impossible. We have the Warner Theater and the Nutmeg Ballet, and we still have plenty of vacancies. All right, so John, prior to myself and Community Health ever speaking, beat the bushes for a good long time on a grocery operator through his supplier, Bazzuto's, who knows every grocer in the tri-state area. An 11,000 square foot grocery store is a non-starter. You just cannot make money at it. Aldi's won't come here. Price Right won't come here. Whole Foods won't come. Fresh Market won't come. They will not come to a footprint that size. So that being said, the only person I found to go there, and John and I found together, was a dollar store. We could argue the viability or the attractiveness of a dollar store downtown just as much as we could argue anything. My point again being is you're getting a community-based health service needed. Seems like only 24% of the people are using it in town that needs it. Very good at what they do. If you look at their operation, which by the way was in an IGA supermarket in Torrington, what they've done there is miraculous, and it serves the people of Torrington. And again, as Steve just pointed out, we have to stay on track. It's either approved or it's not approved. It's not because we want something here that we're not offering. It's not something because we want another grocer to come in. Another grocer is not coming. They're just not coming. And John had the business for sale for a couple years and nobody bid on the hook at all. So if John retires like he's going to, we can't force the man not to retire and keep limping around the store all day. The store will go dark, and more than likely, at the very bare minimum, it'll stay dark for a good year to 2 years. And then after that, you're going to get a tchotchke store. You're going to get an antique shop, maybe. But it's just what's happening in downtowns, and we have to deal with it. And I urge the commission to approve this project. Okay? Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address the commission?
Those of you who know me know how uncomfortable this makes me. I appreciate the commission hearing me out on this. My name is John Dwan. I'm the owner of the Winsted Super Saver. Some of you who have been in town for a long time will remember that at one time there were 17 grocery stores in Winsted. This goes back into the 40s and 50s and even the early 60s. There was one on every corner, along with a package store and a bar in every neighborhood. Just the way the things were back then. When I got to town in 1981, there were 4 other stores besides me. There was Liberty Market, which is now a pharmacy. There was Bruno's Market, which I believe is now a flooring storage area or flooring store. Nichols Market, the Nichols brothers, and their pop ran that store, their mom, for 70 years, 80 years, and that's now a restaurant. So I'm the last man standing. And what Mario has told you is true. Retail is going to change so much over the next 5 years with the advent of Amazon, and now Walmart's getting into the internet business. And it has affected my business, and I believe it's affected even the big boys. I mean, you look at CVS closed 70 stores today. Payless Shoes closed 500 stores today. It's a reality, and this is where we're going. And I hate to go, but it's time. It'll be 36 years for me in August, and it's time for me to go. In support of the application, I would add that I've worked with these people for the last 6 or 8 months at least, and you know, when you're looking for someone to buy your business, you do your due diligence, and these are good people. They care about their business, they care about their clients, and they care about Winsted. And I am proud to sell it to them, and I think they'll be an asset to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Second. Any on the first go round? Are there any persons who wish to address us? If there not being anyone interested in coming around for a second shot.
Surprise. Okay. I live downtown, and I have since I've been in Winston since 1990. Lived on the east end first, and now I live on the west end. And so I'm a IGA customer. John and I are good friends. So this is not about John, and I didn't bring John up because it is not about John. This is about the POCD, the Winsted Health Center, and the commercial town center of downtown Winsted. This decision is going to we're going to live with this and the people after us for decades and decades. And I think that what's important, again, is to stress that the Winsted Health Center is specifically mentioned in the POCD for support. Community Health and Wellness has been there. They are there. They can expand there and do their very good work there. The other thing I'd like to ask this commission is, I know there's a competing public hearing on the education budget tonight at Pearson School, and many people called me today and asked that I mentioned that to ask that the public hearing remain open so that they could attend and speak to this issue. I don't know if that's something the commission is interested in doing, but I did get calls. I've been getting calls actually since this came out in the paper, and people who did want to participate but felt that they had to participate in the public hearing on the education budget divided them, although I think this is pretty good attendance. So I'd ask that maybe the commission consider that so more of the public could opine on this very important decision which will affect the future of downtown Winsted forever. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I'm just waiting to see if there's anybody else, and then maybe I can say a few words in response on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, you may.
If we got everybody else.
That's it.
You only have 2 minutes.
Okay.
32 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you. I expect to be fairly brief anyway, but you never know. First of all, it's entirely appropriate for the commission to close the public hearing. I mean, it happens all the time in towns all around the state that there might be 2 or more different public meetings happening, but you obviously have a lot of people here. You've heard from several. I think the issues and the concerns of the community and of the property owner and of the applicant have been well aired, so we would ask you after this to close the hearing tonight. As to the information and the concerns you heard about the Winsted Health Center, we can't really address that. As was correctly pointed out, that's not an issue for this commission. It's speculation, really. Nobody knows what will happen there, and that property is not before you tonight. What's before you is 372 Main Street, and what's going to happen with that property. I can't improve upon what Mr. Dwan explained to you, but I think the important point is to the concerns about, as I said at the outset of my remarks, folks that are sad to see the store close. We understand that, but this application is not the cause of that. Your action on this application will not decide whether or not the Super Saver closes. Mr. Dwan is retiring and he's closing the business. So just to repeat what I said to you at the outset, your decision is, will you allow a health center to move in there, or will the building remain dark and empty for a while and maybe turn into something else, as Mr. Longabuco described? As to the town center regulations, it was correctly pointed out, medical facilities are permitted. You need a special permit. We need to show you, as we believe we have, that the considerations for a special permit have been satisfied. But if they are, that use has already been determined by the commission to be appropriate in this district. So it's inaccurate, I think, for people to say that it conflicts somehow with the plan of conservation and development, or it conflicts with the intent or purposes of the town center zone to have a not-for-profit business located there, when the regulations say this is a permitted use as long as you comply with the criteria for a decision. And even though taxes are not part of your decision, as was correctly pointed out, I would urge you not to underestimate the contributions to local economies that are made by nonprofit businesses. I think that's very well established and understood. You will have a thriving health center. They're going to be expanding. They're going to be hiring more people. You will have feet on the street, and we believe it will be complementary to the restaurants and the other businesses that are downtown, not in any way detracting from them. And so that is compatible with the neighborhood. That is consistent with your plan of conservation and development and with the purposes of the town center zone. I believe with that, I have covered what I would like to offer in response, unless there's any final questions for us.
Well, I just, with regards to the calls for other people being interested to attend, I would like to have us consider extending this to the next meeting.
Yeah.
It is a very, very important decision to make for everybody involved, and I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing if there are no other comments tonight from the public.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Continue to the next regular meeting, which is
10.
April 10th.
Okay. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.
This is Brian O'Haron speaking. I didn't go to the meeting last night, but I went down today and I got a copy of the voice recording, and I edited out all the other things that were in the meeting, the other projects, for you all to hear. Now, I've known John Dwan for many years, ever since I retired in 2002. I've shopped in there quite a bit when I need things, especially when I was walking around town a lot when in my younger days. When I heard John was trying to sell the building, I went down and talked to him for half an hour or so. He was kind enough to spend some time with me. John's always been an advocate for growing the grand list. He told me that 15 years ago, that we need to grow the grand list. And I often went to him for advice. He's a good advocate for the town. He does things for people, helps people, has over the years. He's been in business for 36 years, and for 33 years he told me he never missed a payroll. And believe me, that's not easy to do. It's tough to make payrolls, and a lot of people don't understand what it's like to make a payroll unless you do it. But he said he advertised for many, many months, and he talked to the town for many, many months, and tried to come up with a solution where somebody could buy the property and keep it on the grand list. We all want that building to be on the grand list. But if we can't pull it off, we can't do it. I think the town manager was involved a bit too in helping over the months, many, many months, to try to find a better solution. But John is 62. He's had a back operation or so, and it's time for him to retire. He wants to retire. He wants to go and do other things. So unless somebody can come up with the money to buy the building, it's most likely that it will go to the clinic. I think they have a federal grant. The rumor is it's $1 million or so, maybe not, but that's what I heard. So let's let nature take its course. P&Z must do things legally, according to the rules. The clinic has an attorney, as you heard in the program. So it'll all come out in the wash. But meanwhile, as an advocate for growing the grand list since 2002, we have to find other ways. John told me that he thought that if he did close down, if he did sell the building to the clinic, other stores would probably move into town. Maybe a meat market, maybe a grocery store. Smaller stores that could weather the storm in this difficult environment we have in Winsted and in the state and in the country. So anyway, tune in again the next month. April 11th, I'll try to put together the next meeting for you. There is no video, only audio. And I don't go to these evening meetings anymore. It's too much for me. I stay home and do other things. You're all welcome to go to the next meeting on April 10th and state your opinion. Everybody's welcome to do that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it opened your eyes a bit. Pay attention. And let's try to grow the grand list. Let's elect people that will really try hard to grow the grand list and make Winsted great again.